Starmer is gagging to enforce Tony Blair's Civil Contingencies Act, I think 2004, which gives the government basically martial law's powers, power of detention.
Indefinite?
We'll basically be in a situation of martial law. They can take anybody's property off them. They can, they'll have secret courts. It's massive. It's never been used. It's sitting there. They would probably enact it if we had civil disorder. I mean, that is maybe they're pushing us to civil disorder to be able to enact those powers. And then we are into potentially the civil war that many people, commentators, have predicted.
Let's just get this right, yeah? First of all, I mean, Resistance, I like Resistance GB, right? And they go to loads of events and they go to loads of protests, right? And there's, He Speaks Freely's got a channel, and then Will's got GB News and he's got his own channel, right? And then they do, they work with Big Brother Watch and other channels. There's a network of channels, right? I guess you could even say unprecedented TV as well, but you've even got Ben Habib going on there. You've got them going on each of his channels now, right? Now, this is really important. This Civil Contingencies Act, right? I'll take a look at it, right? But I know for a fact that Andrew Bridgen's probably misinterpreting that act when he's just sold that act now as if they can take away all the civil liberties just like that, right? But people would do well to, when you read the Bill of Rights and you've got all these different rights in there, and one of them is that you can't have a standing army out of times of war and things like that, yeah? Now, what Andrew Bridgen is saying is like they're going to declare a state of war, right? But the 1688 Bill of Rights, and when you read leading up to through the Civil War, all the writings of William Prynne, they actually had this kind of like, people didn't want to pay that shipping money, and they were trying to do the war with Spain, and they had all these like mariners, right? Call them mariners, but they were royal officers, soldiers, right? But they had them distributed all around the country, and they had them staying in people's houses, and they weren't treating them very well, and that was under martial law. They had it under martial law because people had been using I don't want to call them civil rights. It's not civil rights. Civil rights is when you got the right to walk down the pavement. That's a civil right. Parliamentary rights, parliamentary privileges, and they put these soldiers out everywhere to intimidate everyone, and you could not get any legal action against these soldiers because they were all under martial law, but they got them staying in houses and people feeding them and things like that. And one of the clauses in the Bill of Rights that you can't have a standing army outside of time of war, but the citizens can arm themselves for defence when an authority is acting unlawfully. That ties into the protections to actually protect us from these armies and you could say the police force as well, and MI5 security services in times when there's not a war. They're not meant to have them, but I think the police force, the size and scope of the police force has grown so big with armed units that it effectively is a standing army that they've got around everywhere all the time. The police force is effective as a standing army outside times of war anyway, and it has been acting unlawfully, right? So I'm going to look at this Civil Contingencies Act and see what they've actually got in it. I doubt that it overrides parliamentary rights and parliamentary privileges, causes and matters to Parliament. I severely doubt that it can override it because they tried to do that with the World Health Organization clauses, and we managed to kind of like, that Dr. Teslara managed to kind of sort of like put a stop to that. I don't think they can do it because of the Bill of Rights, but they're still not, as it stands, without that Civil Contingencies Act that Bridgen's just mentioned, that the police are overstepping their the law anyway as it is, right? The police are acting and have been acting illegally against some protests like the farmers and so forth. And we're not actually getting any legal action, any proceedings. And it doesn't seem like Andrew Bridgen or Will or Emma or even Big Brother Watch or any of the channels want to talk about that. They don't want to discuss it. I mean, they don't seem to want to just discuss it. And they're the ones who are complaining about Parliament not letting Andrew Bridgen, discuss the COVID things. So all these channels they're meant to be about, freedom of speech and, they're opposing these authorities which don't let people discuss things or don't want them to discuss them. But, like, for example, I'm trying to get these privileges discussed and the law, and they're not wanting to discuss them. They won't let us discuss them, or they don't want to discuss it or have it discussed on their channels, and they're not listening, they're not paying attention. Now, I believe Bridgen is being honest about him opposing digital ID, and if they get digital ID, the whole thing's kind of like, it's sort of like, in a way, it's game over, but Bridgen's got a problem, right? Because he's a little bit like Mike Amesbury in a way. Mike Amesbury did not know about parliamentary privileges properly and wasn't taught it and hasn't learned it. And the Parliamentary Privileges Committee need to be challenged on a few things, right? Including Starmer, because he was leading this Crown Prosecution Service, right? So Mike Amesbury wasn't actually in a position to properly, effectively help himself, right? And Parliament weren't going to help him. Now, Bridgen's in a little bit of a situation similar to that. Now, there's a deadlock situation with Tommy Robinson, Aidan Eardley, the Attorney General, and Andrew Bridgen, right? Now, Bridgen says that it's not really about Matt Hancock, it's more about the COVID and defamation, right? If you want to be an MP, and if you want to be a public figure, and if you want to have opinions about things that are parliamentary causes and matters, which are going to be dealt with in Parliament, right, you're going to have to accept what other people want to say about you and your opinion, right, about those matters, okay? Because that's the deal. Now, for the first time ever, I haven't watched every Bridgen video. I can't watch every interview he does, but I've watched most of them, right, that mainly get put around, and he generally tells the same story, right? But this interview now on Resistance GB with Will is the first time I've actually heard Bridgen mention privileges. And he talked about, all the stuff in Parliament with Rishi Sunak to do with his issue with Matt Hancock and in and around that to do with Sunak, which is privileged. So he's actually this is the first time he's actually used the word and acknowledged it in when he's even mentioned Matt Hancock within the same paragraph or within the same 5 minutes, right? Now, Bridgen is under the assumption and opinion that all these social media platforms like Twitter and X aren't privileged or can't be, right? And it seems like this. Yet on the Parliament website, they advertise the MP social media as a legitimate form of contact, right? And when you're using those forms to talk to your MP about casework, and it does in the new Erskine-May books, it even says that if you're writing a letter to an MP, right, it's talking about correspondence. Now, they're saying that not all correspondence is privileged, right? But if it's matters and causes that are to be dealt with by Parliament, it is, right? Not all communications are. That's an argument which needs to be had, because in the Bill of Rights, it's matters and the matters and the causes. Now, we know that the matters and the causes are our petitions, right? The matters and the causes are our petitions, right? Our petitions are the matters and causes in the Bill of Rights. And, before Parliament is in order to Parliament. Read the dictionary. Read Samuel Johnson's dictionary, right? Before Parliament means in order to, right? Before the court, which is proceedings leading up to and in front of a court. Saying before a court is not saying in front of the court or inside the court. Before a court means in order to a court, right? Which is proceedings, right? And you got civil mesne process. Now, this is a thing. if Andrew Bridgen and any other MP has any account which says Andrew Bridgen MP, he's declared that it's the MP, right? So MP, member of Parliament. And if he's member of Parliament, surely it's matters of Parliament. Because if his Twitter said at the time, Andrew Bridgen MP, member of Parliament, then surely that is matters of Parliament. Members of Parliament, matters of Parliament, right? MP. Now, if it was, just Andrew Bridgen, and he's got his cousin and his auntie and his uncle on there, and photos of his granny, and they're going out walking the dog. But I don't think that he did. Now he'll have changed his X and Twitter accounts. Will have changed since then, right? But this is one of the arguments. David Davis MP on his page, which he says is MP. Okay, it's not all casework, but people are talking about parliamentary matters on there. People are talking about parliamentary causes and matters. MP, Member of Parliament, MP, Matters of Parliament, right? Question. On a random MP's Facebook page, right? John Smith, MP, right? What are people talking about on there? Are they talking about, oh, John, you've got a lovely dog on there. You took it for a walk with your granny on a Sunday. It's slobbering all over the ice cream there. The ice cream fell on the floor, right? All our people talking about grumble, must grumble about, Labour policies, what this Labour government is bringing the country to. Everyone's, I'm furious about Keir Starmer. Matters of Parliament. MP, Member of Parliament, Matters of Parliament, right? And this is Strode's Act. Strode's Act 1512 clearly states that in the future, no person will be prosecuted or charged for any speaking, right, concerning Parliament, right? And this is what you've got to read in Erskine May in the latest one, under the newest two have introduced this, communications with constituents. Not all letters to your MP, they're saying are privileged, but there's a debate and an argument on that, particularly when the last few Privilege Committee reports don't even mention Strode's Act or any of the other 5 Parliamentary Privileges Acts. They don't mention them at all. They purely run on the 1688 Bill of Rights, freedom of speech. And that clause isn't even called parliamentary privilege. They make out that Article 9 is parliamentary privilege, but it's entitled, what's the title of the article? It's called freedom of speech. It's a small part of the wider parliamentary privilege. Freedom of speech in Parliament isn't the full extent of parliamentary privilege. It's just a small part of it, right? So, but they're running the entire freaking committee report on one article, which isn't even called parliamentary privilege. It's called free speech in Parliament, and they've even been knocking out Privileges Acts after 1688. They've been knocking Privileges Acts out in the 1700s, right? In fact, in 1700, maybe 1736, or maybe not exactly 1736 or 37, something like that, right? There's 5 or 6 of them. In fact, there are 6 that I know of, because there's one in the early statutes before Strode's Act, which I didn't know about. But even then, there were multiple acts in there which distinguish the jurisdiction of Parliament from the other courts. But anyway, right, now, this is a situation with Bridgen, right? And he's openly admitted in this video that he says it's not about Matt Hancock. He says it's actually about the whole COVID issue and the general thing, the whole thing, Sunak and the whole wider strategy and big picture of it all, right? That's what he's saying. He's saying, no, it's not just about Matt Hancock, right? But this is the thing, right? Hancock himself went off on that jungle programme, right? If you read William Prynne, that's a breach of privilege because he wasn't available and there for his constituents and to be in Parliament, right? He went jetting off on that stupid jaunt. That can be a breach of privilege because you're not doing what you've been elected to do, right? So that's one argument that I'm helping Bridgen there. I would have preferred if Bridgen would have prosecuted Hancock for breach of privilege for fucking off to the jungle, right? Now, there's an argument about these social media accounts, because some of them are using election material and they're not removing it after the election, and it's having an effect on the public, promotional effect, 365 days a year, and it's helping, aiding and affecting other by-elections that are going on for those parties that they're members of, right? And that is not fair. It's unfair. In the 2007 Control of Advertisements, you're going to remove them after 14 days, right? You know, you don't continue to have a radio advert 365 days a year. Like, you hear it and then you don't hear it again, right? Now, they've been converting their election pages into Parliament pages, right? They've been converting them and into the once they become elected, right? Then you become the MP and you're not doing an election campaign anymore, and you've got to ditch that. But they don't ditch it; they just leave it all there, right? And it's an overseas platform anyway. There's an argument that it's overseas. Now, Farage is the main offender for social media because he used very expensive private money to boost his popularity for talking pints and had all these guests on, knowing that he was going to run for an election and knowing that it was going to help him and boost his profile, and it could have been challenged, but you've only got 14 days to challenge it afterwards and then it's gone. There is a controverted election petition you can do to Parliament, but they're currently lying and saying that we can't do it, even though it's in the book. You can have that, right? It's not contesting one seat. You can use it for widespread corruption, right? Which I think there is widespread corruption. They're not letting us use it. I've tried, but they're just blanking us and just lying to us, right? And they definitely won't let you use it on e-petitions, that's for sure. When e-petitions are meant for the same as paper petitions. So the whole social media thing is a scandal, right? And Nick Clegg is one of the architects of that. From his Radio Hallam days, and then leading from his Radio Hallam days to being the global president of Facebook, right? He's even, there's evidence that he knew that he wasn't, the social media wasn't up to scratch with the law, because he says that to Mark Zuckerberg in his interview, right? Now let's go back to Bridgen and Hancock, right? I don't support Bridgen in his legal case against Hancock, because I think it's privileged under matters and causes of Parliament, even though they're not in Parliament. But I don't think Bridgen is even standing up for us with our privileges for our petitions and our parliamentary causes under the Bill of Rights as an equal protection and privilege to what MPs are using in Parliament. It's a badass right. And the police aren't even acknowledging and upholding it, right? Now, Aidan Eardley is in one of these double agent positions because he is helping he's been hired by the Attorney General, who's completely and totally undermined our rights as well. And he's gone against Tommy Robinson, right? Now, Tommy Robinson is doing parliamentary causes. And like when he copied that video, copyright, if you can show that video he showed was political, in the Copyright Act 1911, anything that is shown in public, you can't be prosecuted for copyright on it. So the other claimant doesn't have a copyright claim. So like if that person who got shown in Tommy Robinson's video, because it was the showing, displaying of it in public, the playing of it, which is like making it available to the public at large or a section of the public, that's what the word publish is meant to mean, making it available by in any form or any means to a public or a section of to the public or a section of the public, right? Then it can fall under the Copyright Act 1911, Section 20. And I know Tommy Robinson had a campaign called Manifesto, right? That's definitely a political cause and campaign, right? So there's some arguments there. Now, the thing is, Tommy Robinson went to jail illegally, if that's the case, just like Roger Hallam did for his, intent for public nuisance, when a public nuisance is on public land, on public property, on a political campaign, and he's not acting as Roger Hallam in a private capacity, and therefore he's acting as like the campaign or the body, and he shouldn't have been put in prison. So it's Tommy Robinson's is sort of on par and equal with Roger Hallam's in they both really, I don't think, should have gone to prison. Now, Aidan Eadley, if he admits that Robinson is... So, Eadley, if Eadley, on behalf of the Attorney General, on behalf of the government, were to accept and admit that Matt Hancock was privileged, even though he wasn't actually in Parliament, because it's just matters and causes of Parliament. They're still parliamentary matters and causes. And I know that you can't use parliamentary privilege for a civil matter because that's in the Claim of Right Act. But you can use it for bankruptcy, but for speaking matters, the parliamentary privilege outside of Parliament for matters and causes is meant to be equal protection to the Parliamentary Papers Act 1840. And that does cover both civil and criminal and like defamation and things like that. It covers like defamation and liable and all those type of things, all those civil things to do with what you're saying or speaking. Now, the Parliamentary Papers Act is actually really important. It isn't privilege, but it's meant to be instead of or like privilege for people who wouldn't have qualified. And those people who wouldn't have qualified are for profit. They're for profit businesses, but nevertheless, they might be using or publishing things that are parliamentary causes and matters, particularly things that have previously been ordered to be published by Parliament, right? Like public petitions. Well, this is the thing. If Bridgen is saying that Sunak and Hancock are privileged in Parliament for what was said, even concerning Bridgen, about all of that, COVID stuff as a subject, right? Then, and if it does go into hands and is published in order to be published in hands and other journals and books, and now if they're talking about the same matter and the same cause, but on social media, or even an abstract of it, not in the same words, that's what the Parliamentary Papers Act protects against. And it doesn't have to be the exact same words. It can just be like, reiterating it or talking about it or an abstract of it. And that's what the Parliamentary Papers Act protects third parties who are for profit when that material ends up in there, like ends up in the newspaper, right? So when it ends up in the newspaper, it might end up on X or Twitter. Now, X and Twitter are for profit, and so are YouTube, right? They're for profit, and they make things available to the public or a section of the public in whatever form and whatever means. So, because YouTube and X are for profit, I mean, why isn't Andrew Bridgen suing X, right? We don't have Section 230 in England. And this is the thing. In America, they've got Section 230, right? So the platform is never regarded as the uploader. But that's not the law in England. We don't have Section 230 in England. It's not English law. So why isn't Bridgen prosecuting Elon Musk, right? Why isn't Bridgen prosecuting Elon Musk for instead of Hancock? Why doesn't Andrew Bridgen prosecute Elon Musk instead of Hancock? That's what Joylan Warren's doing now, prosecuting X. But X actually can use the Parliamentary Papers Act in England. X can use the Parliamentary Papers Act in England because it includes digital and video now, since it was upgraded by the Broadcasting Act 1990, for anything concerning the Parliament on a for-profit platform which has previously been discussed or published by Parliament or debated, and all the COVID matters were, right? All the COVID matters were. So when people are talking about it on Parliament, it's just like the newspaper putting a story out about it. So use the Parliamentary Papers Act. And this is my dispute with YouTube over my channel getting taken down, which doesn't need to use the Parliamentary Papers Act because it's privileged anyway because it's a parliamentary petition and matter and cause. But YouTube itself can use the Parliamentary Papers Act in England against prosecutions, but instead of using the Parliamentary Papers Act and protecting my content to keep it up, it's actually YouTube that took it down, right? Not because of the law, because the law actually protects me. It's because of their policy, because they want to remove it just because it's their pure. They want their YouTube. They can do what they want. Their YouTube, right? But they can't because of in England they can't do what they want. And this is to do with the freedom of the press, the right of all people to use the post or the telephone or whatever, right? And in America, they've got that Section 230, which completely and totally, YouTube thinks it can't be treated as uploader. It's a bit of a stab in the back that it's very traitorous, that Section 230 American Act, because it gives the platform this massive privilege not to be treated as whoever does so, but it actually claims that it takes away the people's political rights. So what it's actually doing is it's actually making, when you're doing something political to the government, it's actually the third party, the platform, is actually stealing and robbing individuals of their political rights and giving itself a massive protection and immunity. So it's kind of like saying no one has any political rights in America online, and the big platforms are the only ones that do. Could you imagine if only rich people had rights? Only the rich people had the right to petition. Like we're going back to like only having very, very rich people voting, or very, very rich people getting elected to Parliament, which is what the Labour Party wanted to make a change to, right? That Section 230 is insane. And I don't think that it actually doesn't protect against criminal contempt. It only says civil. So there's some flaws in it that can be challenged anyway, because if you remove political material, there's an argument and debate that it's criminal contempt, not civil, right? But you might not, if it's civil, you could say you can't, sue them or claim any money from the platform, but that doesn't to say that they can't be prosecuted criminally, right? So, the Hancock-Bridgen thing is massive, because the problem with Bridgen is he's going on all these channels and he's saying, oh yeah, I'm with you guys, I'm with GB News, I'm with Big Brother Watch, I'm part of you, I'm going on Verbs' channel, I'm one of the dudes, I'm one of you guys, right? But he's betraying our privilege protection on the platforms because he wants to do Hancock and so forth, and Sunak and that for the vaccines. And the problem is that if Bridgen admits that we're protected and he can't prosecute Hancock, right, then Aidan Eardley, right, who's defending Hancock, right, if Aidan Eardley Aidan Eardley really should be doing a victory dance if Hancock is privileged. But then Aidan Eardley has a nightmare because he's also representing the Attorney General for Tommy Robinson cases, and if you prove that privilege for Hancock and us in our causes, then you got to look at it for Tommy Robinson as well, right? Particularly under the Copyright Act 1911, Section 20 as well. And then Aidan Eardley loses for the Attorney General in that case, right? So Aidan Eardley is in a very awkward situation at the moment, and people aren't talking. No one is talking about this. Absolutely no one. This is huge. Eardley is like a solicitor lawyer now who really is like a double agent. It's kind of like, Two-Face. It's like, he's in one room, and if he proves this legal concept in one room, right, he loses for the Attorney General for, Tommy Robinson, and which is, well, they've already done Tommy Robinson, but, he was wrong for that. But then on the other side, if he proves it, he can't. If he proves it for Matt Hancock, then it must sort of be similar and apply for Tommy Robinson, right? Not identically, but similar. So it's like Aidan Eardley. He's like, he split him in half. He's kind of like, he's in a very compromising situation because really they want to use the Parliamentary Papers Act for X because it's a for-profit platform, right? But Bridgen didn't sue X, he sued the account holder, right? But in England, you could sue X because it's Elon Musk, right? And it's not in America, right? And Elon Musk has actually said that. Elon Musk has said that if anyone's got any legal issues on his platform or if anyone gets challenged on there, he will put the money up for it, right? Elon Musk has said that he'll put the money up for the legal costs if anyone gets challenged on his platform, right? But if you apply Strode's Act to X, no one can be prosecuted for their political opinion in matters and causes of Parliament, right? And then, an X itself, that's the uploader, that's the person, that's the client, that's the account holder, the person. But what about suing X? Well, in America, X can never be treated as the uploader. So they've got really, the Parliamentary Papers Act is a little bit like what the Section 230 does for the platform, right, or for the newspaper publisher. But in America, it protects the big-ass bad boy, multi-billionaire Zuckerberg badasses, but it completely and totally insults, scraps, and ditches all of the users, because then the platform can actually remove them all or take them all off, which actually means that effectively, if Mark Zuckerberg wanted to, he could just have it like, he could have, all Democrat stuff, right? And what happens if everyone in the world uses Facebook? If Mark Zuckerberg wanted to, he could just take down every account that's political material, supposedly on Section 230, right? Or if supposedly that's what Section 230 could. They'd be held to. They'd be absolutely bedlam then, right? But apparently, Mark Zuckerberg, he's such a badass. Why didn't he do it? Right? If he's such a tough guy, why doesn't Zuckerberg say, right, I'm actually going to take over the world with this platform, make sure everyone in the world is on this platform, and then when I've done that, I'm going to take down all the Republican material from there, because, it's all fucking Good Samaritan stuff, and I think it's all bullshit. I'll take it down, right? And you can't fuck me for it, right? Well, we'd see what Senator fucking Ted Cruz had to say about that then. We'd see what, Rand Paul had to say about that. We'd see what, John Kennedy had to say about that, or even Donald Trump, right? I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I'm a good Samaritan, I can take shit down that's constitutionally protected, right, without being prosecuted. So I'll just take all the fucking Republican shit down off my old platform after I've taken over the world, and they won't fucking exist. The Republicans won't exist. I'll just, turn them off. I'll just switch the Republicans off like that. Just because I'm Mark Zuckerberg, I actually, the platform owner apparently is God, right? And this is the problem with that stupid Section 230. It actually makes voters insignificant, minions. That they're nothing. They're worthless. They're not even worth anything, right? So it's a miracle you can turn up to vote in America, right? And it makes Zuckerberg into the all powerful. But in England, the Parliamentary Papers Act actually protects. It's meant to stop other people from bringing any civil or criminal action against the material, so it doesn't get removed, so it doesn't get challenged, and so the platform owner doesn't get challenged, like Elon Musk or whatever. It protects them from legal actions, but also protects the user from legal actions as well. But instead, what they've got in America is hey, why don't we just have instead of having all our users protected and the platform protected, we'll actually make it so the users aren't protected and the platform is, and then the platform can just boss them all and fucking kick them all off and rubbish all their stuff, right? Which is scandalous. It's absolutely and completely and totally scandalous. Now, Elon Musk, because if for X in England, you can't have Section 230, but you can't prosecute Elon Musk because of the Parliamentary Papers Act, not for the political content on there, which is... But you also can't prosecute the uploader, right? Which is fair. No one can prosecute Elon Musk, and then no one can prosecute the uploaders, so they're all protected. It's not like Elon Musk, bossing people on his platform and just, saying, oh, we're not going to have any Republicans on X, right? Because that would be fucking ridiculous, right? Or we're not going to have anyone with this or that political opinion on X or whatever. So, really, because X is for profit, and Matt Hancock is on there, you can't really prosecute Elon Musk if it's something that was previously debated and talked about in Parliament, and then, if Andrew Bridgen participated in that, then that's what the Parliamentary Papers Act is for, because the newspapers are going to talk about it afterwards and have an opinion, right? And that's really what Matt Hancock's doing. And this is what Andrew Bridgen doesn't seem to understand, right? He does. I don't think he understands the law properly and enough in the same context as Mike Amesbury didn't, right? And that's important. And then even the Attorney General, Aidan Needley aren't getting it right. But, what can you do? It's, whoever's got the most money, whoever's got the most followers, whoever's got the most minions, you can't get on these shows. You can't get talking to them. You can't raise it, And if I was on there with Bridgen, I'd have to be like, it's like, he says, like, we need to stop digital ID. Well, that's great, Andrew. That's brilliant. Let's praise you for that. But you're totally wrong about Hancock, If it was something he said in connection with things that you talked about in Parliament, which did go into hands and have been published, and you want to discuss that or abstract it, even if it might upset or offend someone, right, then tough, right? Because it's an opinion, and this is in that Carl Witt book, PhD, right, on all those cases. And, all you need to do, right, is, get that book out, open it up, go onto the page and read out those cases to Bridgen and explain it to him. But I don't think he wants it explaining to him. I mean, it probably would be a disaster for Bridgen if I was in an interview with him and I brought that up. He wouldn't like it. But he's in and around all these causes, and this is what all these causes are trying to uphold our rights and protect our rights. So Bridgen, in a way, even though he means well and, he's opposing digital identity and wants to help us out with all the COVID stuff, he's got his own issues with these other parties in his own legal cases with them. And in a way, that makes him a little bit like Aidan Needley, because it's kind of like he's trying to play both sides a little bit. And Aidan Needley really is... Aidan Needley, at the moment, I don't think he's going to claim the privileges for Hancock or the Parliamentary Papers Act, because if he does, then people are going to go, well, you're the guy who just says, if you want to win a case, you say something's true, and then if you're going to lose a case, then you totally deny it. It's like, if Aidan Needley walks into a room with a red box to win a case, and then he walks into another room and he's doing a case, but if he happens to have a red box, he'll lose the case, right? Because it proves the case for the other side. Then he'll fucking throw the red box in the fucking bin and pretend it doesn't exist, right? So that's the mentality of Aidan Needley, right? He's playing both sides, and this is the double crossing of these lawyers. Now, the worst thing with Aidan Needley is that he's been employed by the government, right? And he's under the overriding objectives, and he's got to recognise the rights of all parties, honestly. And he didn't with Tommy Robinson, So, he didn't recognise his rights, the rights of the defendant. So Aidan is despicable. He's despicable, and on his on his barrister page, Aidan Needley is a very technical and complicated barrister. Yeah, he's a lying bastard. He's a lying bastard, a bullshit merchant, and he's playing both sides. And I complained about him to his chambers. So the whole situation is ridiculous. I don't think that Elon Musk will know about that Parliamentary Papers Act, to be honest. And he probably, in America, you wouldn't need it because you got He'd be protected by the Section 230 for anything else that anyone uploads, right? But in England, we don't have Section 230. It's not the law, right? But so instead, if Andrew Bridgen had said, I'm going to prosecute Elon Musk, right, for what Matt Hancock said, right, then Elon Musk, because he's for profit, he can use the Parliamentary Papers Act, right? Because Parliament discussed and debated all that COVID stuff, right? And Bridgen participated in it, and Hancock, and they're talking about it on his platform. So it was ordered to be published by Parliament, and they're talking about it, right? They're discussing it. Well, that's a fucking point in the Act, right? If the newspaper want to run a fucking story on it, right? That's the point in the Act. It's the same as a newspaper talking about it, right? Or interviewing Hancock about it and talking about it, or interviewing Bridgen about it. Really, they can say what they want about it, an opinion. And that the case study on that is in the Carl Whittaker book, right? And with examples. It's not parliamentary privilege, but it's instead of it for-profit companies. But because Elon Musk will be able to use it and protect Elon Musk X in England, it also proves that, if you're not for profit and you're talking about it, then all of his clients, all of the individual accounts who are talking about it are protected under privilege anyway. But this is a thing. I don't know if some people are making money or not. If you're monetized, right? If you are monetized on X or Facebook or Twitter, you are for profit then, right? And this is when they start disqualifying me for monetization. Like I got disqualified. Well, my channel's been removed, but I want when I tried to monetize it, and they suddenly decided that they were going to put this ineligibility in, right? Because mainly to do with taxes, because like you're not supposed to take tax off people. But I don't think you can tax for online services anyway, though. I don't think you can tax for online services anyway, but you can't for political. But if you're, this is the thing, if you get monetized and you get the money, and then you say, "Oh, that's great! I've just made myself some money now. I'm going to go back. I'm going to go buy myself something." Right? That's meant to be for profit for you. But if you use the money for your campaign, like to advertise, promote it, get T-shirts printed like what, the Great British Strike's doing, what Donaldson's doing on the Great British National Strike type thing, right? He's getting people to buy him stuff on his Amazon list and all kinds of stuff for the campaign, supposedly. But he's also got it mixed in with a charity as well. So there's you can't, he's wanting to do a charity, but then he's wanting to do a political cause. So he's got two separate things merged together there, right? So but theoretically, if you want to use the money for the campaign, like get more stickers printed, get more flyers printed, get T-shirts, and grow the campaign like a not-for-profit, then it can be privileged if you've got a political campaign and you've got an account on X. But if you don't actually have a political campaign, so to say, and your channel is kind of like, I don't know if you can get monetized on X, because I don't actually know that much about X, to be honest. And now that they've changed it all, I don't know if you can get monetized on X. I'll Google it after I finish this, right? Or I could pause it and Google it. But in fact, I will, because then I'll know what I'm talking about. Hold on. Right, so I just Googled it, right? You can be monetized on X through various ad campaigns, opt-ins and other things. So you can be monetized on X, right? Now, this is the thing. If you're monetized on X and you use it for political stuff, you're not going to be paying tax on that. But there was something in the Value-Added Tax Act where you don't pay tax for online services. So I don't know how they're doing the monetization, and I don't know if these big platforms are doing tax or not, because I never got monetized. I'm not sure, but they said that I'm not eligible for monetization. If online services aren't taxed, like in the Value-Added Tax Act, which I read, then it doesn't matter. It wouldn't matter whether you're a political body or not, right? It wouldn't matter whether you were a political entity or not. But they just demonetised me because they didn't want me to make money, which is if that's discrimination, and under the law of Parliament, which says that you can't be deterred, hindered, or interfered with from a political campaign. It definitely is discrimination. And well, it's not discrimination. You've got those discriminations like sex, gender, and race, right? Facebook and YouTube, right, actually truly believe this is like where they're not on the same planet as us. This will blow Neil Mohan's fucking mind and put him into a more serious criminal than Julian Assange. He'll never get prosecuted for it, and he'll never go to prison because he's like the Americans, like good little fucking mega billionaire, super, favorite, like fucking Tony Hawk, #1 American or whatever, right? Neil Mohan, he'll never go to prison for it, ever. So I don't think Sergey Brin will, because they're above the law. They're like the government. They're the government's chosen ones, right? And they've been chosen to be corrupt, right? You don't need to have sex, gender, race, or religion discrimination on one of those discriminative classes, right? Because if you obstruct or hinder a parliamentary cause, right, it's contempt of Parliament. So it's actually even worse than in the Discriminations Act when you've got gender, sex, race, or religion, right? That's an offence in itself. To obstruct or hinder a political campaign is actually contempt of Parliament, right? So it's its own You're discriminating against a political cause, right? Which is contempt of Parliament, because you're stopping them from raising money. You're injuring them, right? So it's, and I'll say this to Neil Mohan. In law, Neil, it's worse than calling someone a packy in law, right? In law, if it's a crime of discrimination to call someone a packy, if that is the case, right, in law, if it's a crime, then it's a worse crime in law to block someone's political campaign, right? And the government won't tell you this because it's in the law of Parliament and it's under misconduct against petitioners and it is a criminal offence. And the government could not care. The Labour Party and Conservatives, whoop-de-doo, they really could not give a flying fuck. The Conservative Party couldn't give a fuck about your pipsqueak petty campaign. It really couldn't give a motherfucking twack about it, right? Or the Labour Party now, Keir Starmer, Labour policy, Labour agenda, get the business through, get the business through, get the business through. They're not protecting our rights, right? But as soon as Dan Norris or Patrick Spence, lays his hand on someone's knee or touches a tit or a breast or a boob, then the old fucking alarm bells in the country going off and the newspapers are on fire. There's fucking fire engines going everywhere. Someone touched someone's fucking knee, right? Or someone called someone a packy, right? But if massive behemoth platforms in America demonetize you and prevent you raising money for your independent political cause, it's not, they could not give a flying fuck, right? It's nothing. So that means that they actually don't uphold the law of Parliament and they don't respect political causes. Yet they're meant to be very important, like going voting. But Starmer's even calling voting off. He's calling the elections off, right? Now, this is the thing. Voting in Parliament and what happens to the country is going to be the most important thing. And what they've done is they've just it's like taking the fucking top off the pint glass, taking they just they want to, it's like, and all these other offences, which are actually minor offences compared to that, they're not contempts, right? They love it. They're looking everyone up. Every single thing, or, insulting Muslims or insulting Islam or whatever, and when they're actually breaking down the Christian religion as they're doing it, you're not allowed to pray, not even calling off, not calling it Christmas anymore, all these things, and, you can't do certain jokes or insult certain people, right, or it's going to upset them. Well, does Neil Mohan not conceive that if he demonetizes you when you're doing a very important campaign, it might upset you, right? It might actually upset you as well, right? You might be offended by that. But unless he calls you, some Jewish insult or some Muslim insult, you're not upset. You're not offended. As if, your political causes, but you can't get upset, because you got demonetized and everyone else didn't. Right? And you haven't got, 100,000 viewers or 1 million viewers or like Russell Bland when everyone else has, right? But that doesn't upset you. That doesn't upset you. And the government, they've desperately tried in all these, protected, classes, race, gender, sex, blah, blah, etc. It makes it look like there is no such offence for, blocking political discussion. And that's how they've deceived many admins and moderators and Mark Zuckerberg's entire legacy and franchise. You can't talk about, in golf, you can't talk about golf in a cricket club, but you can't talk about cricket in a golf club. You can't talk about tennis in a fucking snooker club, right? And we don't have any political discussion in this group, right? No politics, no politics. You can't have any club or society which says no politics, right? Because that's a contempt of Parliament. And it's the biggest con and the biggest lie and the biggest trick in the entire all of England, right? To try and make people believe that someone can say to you, we had a political discussion in here, right? When it was protected before all these individual things, but they're quite happy to say, oh, you can't, insult women, or if you ain't got a woman's toilet, or, if you say, we're not allowed Muslims in here, or we don't allow Jews in here, or whatever, then they can actually paint the town red with the law. And this is what's actually preventing political discussion from getting to these neutral groups. And it's why these petitions are only at 3 million signatures, not 6 million. And it's actually containing it, right? They're trying to make it, completely political neutral areas when you can't really have that. And I think it's part of the overall strategy, what they're doing now, because they're banging all these laws through, and Starmer's never been as unpopular. Well, where are all the? Why aren't more people signing things? Why aren't more people talking about it? Well, because they've got this fake, Facebook group, Tosh, which is like, we don't have political discussion in here, right? Yeah, you can do them for contempt, right? You can, but then they're not doing it. So it's just another way for the main political parties to completely dominate. And it's like the main political parties are totally dominating parliament and politics, and just like flicking us, like just flicking us, like as if we're little fleas, like just flicking us away, right, and not even upholding anything. Yet that's what the big platforms are doing in America. They're just they've got like, the platform owners are completely protected, but the account users aren't, so that they're just like flicking everyone off, right? Which is completely. That's not like in England with the Parliamentary Papers Act, which actually should protect like the platform and the users equally. So neither the platform nor the users can get prosecuted, and then there's no reason why the platform owner would want to kick someone off there, right? But it's actually makes Sergey Brin and Neil Mohan into kind of like. Well, it's like them having their own Facebook group when they say, oh, no political discussion in here, and they just boot people out, right? When that's contempt. So it's like a big version. It's like if you imagine the whole of YouTube and the whole of Google as one big Facebook group where, like, Sergey Brin and Neil Mohan are admin and moderator, and they just can fucking, right, get the fuck out of my group, right, Well, actually, no, that's contempt, right? Well, not in America, well, you can't prosecute me, well, fuck you, It's like you're nothing, you don't have any fucking political rights in America, you have nothing, I own this platform, you might as well say, but they're wanting to own the world through that. And I actually now think that is one of the main key things which they're doing, kind of, what has allowed, now that there's not just mainstream TV, and now that there's all these different channels and platforms, why aren't they doing even better than they're doing now? Why isn't Starmer already out? Why isn't Labour already beaten? Why aren't all these independent parties got loads more support? Well, because they've been, banning people from talking about it in other groups and spreading awareness of it. They've been demonetising people so they can't get funds, to promote it better and expand and grow their causes. And they've been taking channels down, illegally in England. So it's like it's actually, you've got more rights in Congress. If they ran Congress like they ran YouTube, Neil Mohan would be king, or he would be like client king under Sergey Brin, right? If they ran Congress like they run YouTube and Google, then Sergey Brin would be king. Right, but not the king like in our country when we've got the House of Commons. You wouldn't even have a House of Representatives. You wouldn't even have a House of Commons. He would just be the emperor, It would just be the ultimate king, because apparently he can remove any political material for any reason or no reason at all, right? You fucking ring the Samaritans, This is the thing, the last people you want to ring if you got a problem, they ring the Samaritans, Oh, we got a problem with the government, ring the Samaritans, they're the cunts who took my fucking stuff down, The Samaritans are the people who took my stuff down, right, I've got a problem, Oh, we need to stop digital ID, or ring the Samaritans, they'll help you, They're the ones who took my fucking shit down, right, This is the thing. So, it's just scandalous. I'm actually trying to make use of this Parliamentary Papers Act now, because I'm in a perfect situation with someone who's helping me, where we're actually doing something which is perfectly eligible for it. In fact, I think Elon Musk, he did put this. Elon Musk put this message out, and he said, like I mentioned it earlier, and he said, like, if anyone has any legal problems on my platform, I'll put the money up for the legal case, right? Which, but there shouldn't be a legal case if you use the Parliamentary Papers Act 1840 if it's political. But this is the thing, no one in their right mind would try to challenge anyone for political speech on there. But they are doing, because Andrew Bridgen's challenging Matt Hancock, right? So it's an MP, Andrew Bridgen, who's the one who's challenging it. So, I mean, I'm not the greatest fan of Matt Hancock, but, it's like Matt Hancock and Elon Musk. In a way, because Elon Musk is for profit, it should be Elon Musk who says, right, get me a certificate under the Parliamentary Papers Act, because, my client, Matt Hancock, has been, putting some material out which was debated in Parliament, right, and went into the FanZone manual, and people are discussing that and writing abstracts about it, right? So therefore, we want to use the Parliamentary Papers Act against the defamation and libel cases which Bridgen's bringing. So really, Elon Musk should be doing that. And then when Elon Musk does that, then you want to raise a question about Tommy Robinson. Then, why did Tommy Robinson go to prison when they've got the Copyright Act, and he was making available to the public, or a section of the public, in public, some material that he made, and someone else didn't want him to copy it, so they brought an injunction, right? But all of the parliamentary privileges reports say that you can't bring injunctions against parliamentary causes and matters, right? They say that in the privileges reports. They say that you can't bring injunctions or super injunctions against parliamentary matters and causes, right? But they only try to make out that it's just MPs and Parliament, which is tosh. 1688 Bill of Rights, right to petition, is privilege. Matters and causes that you're going to bring to Parliament, that's privileged. I don't know why Bridgen won't say it. I mean, it's the first time he's mentioned privileges, Something needs to be done, right? Elon Musk actually should get one of those certificates and put it on the wall in his office at X, just put it up on there, I happen to be in the business of, making available to the public matters and causes that people are discussing that were previously put out in FanZone, right? Just like a newspaper does. So like, I'll have one of those on my wall, right? And it protects any of my users if they're mentioning matters and causes that have been put to Parliament, or if it's not matters and causes that Parliament have already debated and published that people are mentioning and talking or referring to, then they've got their own causes that they start themselves using the rights, right? And you don't have to be an MP, and it doesn't have to be inside Parliament, right? Because you're trying to get people to support it to send and submit it to Parliament, So, Elon Musk really should be pursuing one of those certificates, and I don't think they've ever issued one yet. I'm trying to get one now. Maybe I should send Elon Musk this. I don't know. I don't think he'll want to listen to me for 57 minutes. No one else seems to. They won't talk about these things. No one's talking about it.